Hello there. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has spoken out in favor of supplying German-made Leopard 2 main battle tanks to Ukraine. I would love nothing more than to see the Ukrainians armed with Leopard 2, is what Cleverly told the BBC on Sunday. I would like nothing more than to see Ukraine equipped with the most modern armored vehicles, both tanks and artillery. The Leopard 2 is an incredibly effective piece of military equipment, stressed the Conservative politician. Cleverly avoided the question of whether he was disappointed in Germany. He has had many discussions with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Defence Secretary Ben Wallace about the British position. The Prime Minister has rightly decided that it is most humane to bring this war to an end quickly and that Ukrainians are successful in defending their motherland, Cleverly said. That is why Great Britain has again increased its military support and will deliver Challenger 2 main battle tanks, as I talked about a lot last week. In the past, Cleverly has repeatedly praised Germany's commitment to Ukraine. But the tone there is getting rougher. Poland's head of government Morawiecki has criticized Chancellor Scholz's stance on the subject of the Leopard 2 for Ukraine as unacceptable. Moscow, on the other hand, is warning of a global catastrophe if main battle tanks are delivered. And so the international criticism is growing louder. Over the weekend, other countries commented on possible Leopard 2 deliveries to Ukraine. As I said, the Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki has now declared that Germany's position on the issue is unacceptable. If the government persists in not supplying the Leopard 2 main battle tank to Ukraine, Poland will create a small coalition of countries. That's what he said in an interview with the Polish news agency PAP. The coalition will supply Ukraine with modern equipment and modern tanks from its own stocks. But the Polish government is waiting for German approval at the moment. Innocent people are dying every day as a result of the Russian war of aggression, is what Morawiecki said. Russian bombs are wreaking havoc in Ukrainian cities, he said. Civilian objects are attacked, women and children are killed. Before the meeting of the Ukraine contact group in Ramstein and Rhineland-Palatinate in Germany, Poland had declared that it wanted to hand over Leopard tanks from its own stocks to Ukraine. However, since the tanks are German-made, the federal government would have to give their approval. The foreign ministers of the Baltic countries had already called on Germany on Saturday to deliver Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine in order to stop Russian aggression. That's how Latvian Foreign Minister Edgars Rinkēvičs wrote it on Twitter, according to his own statements, also on behalf of his counterparts from Estonia and Lithuania. From the point of view of the advisor to the Ukrainian head of state, Volodymyr Zelensky, it is anyway the case that the supporting countries will ultimately supply Ukraine with battle tanks. You will help Ukraine with the necessary weapons anyway and realize that there is no other option to end the war, is what Ukrainian presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak tweeted. On the other hand, as I said, a clear warning came from Russia. The delivery of offensive weapons to the regime in Kiev will lead to a global catastrophe. That was said by the head of the Russian lower house, Vyacheslav Volodin, in the news service Telegram. A terrible war is looming should the USA and NATO supply weapons to attack civilian cities, and should there be any attempts at conquests, this will lead to retaliatory measures with more powerful weapons. So that one again. The head of the State Duma made it clear that Russia regards attacks on the Ukrainian regions of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Kherson, which are occupied by Russian troops, as attacks on its territory. Russia had annexed the areas itself with tanks and other heavy weapons. Volodin warns of a tragedy on a global scale. A decision by Western politicians to supply offensive weapons could end in a tragedy on a global scale that will destroy their countries, said the head of the State Duma. During the war that has been going on for almost a year now, the nuclear power Russia has repeatedly declared that it would also defend the annexed regions with all the means at its disposal. Since Russia's attack on Ukraine, the so-called German traffic light coalition has been struggling to find the right course, more or less publicly. And now as we would say in Germany, the collars of important players are bursting. Disagreements over the issue of supplying German-made battle tanks to Ukraine are escalating now into public coalition riots. After FDP, so liberal defense expert Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann had publicly attacked Chancellor Olaf Scholz in the dispute over the battle tanks, the Social Democratic Parliamentary Group leader Rolf Mützenich told the German press agency, "Politics in times of war in Europe are not made in the style of outrage rituals or gasping, but with clarity and reason." Strack-Zimmermann had described the communication, especially from Scholz on the issue of battle tank deliveries, as a catastrophe. Because, on the one hand, Germany is giving Ukraine massive support, but the lack of a decision on the battle tanks gives a different impression. She told the German news station Tagesschau 24 on Saturday, "If you don't want to deliver Leopard 2, then you have to explain why. Then Ukraine needs to get an explanation." The chairman of the Europe Committee in the Bundestag, Anton Hofreiter from the Greens, told the newspapers of the Funke Media Group on Monday, "Of course, it's not just about Leopard 2, but this is a crucial support that Germany can offer." But not all his Greens are of the same opinion as him. The training of Ukrainian soldiers on the Leopard must begin right now so that there are no further delays. At the Ukraine conference in Ramstein on Friday, Germany had not yet decided to deliver battle tanks to the war zone, despite considerable pressure from its allies. The federal government has not yet issued any delivery permits to other countries for the tanks produced in Germany either. And Hofreiter said, "Germany made a serious mistake in Ramstein and lost further prestige as a result. That must now be corrected quickly." However, US President Joe Biden seems to be just as hesitant as Scholz on the question of battle tanks, although he gives reasons. While the Americans have no objection in principle to supplying main battle tanks, they do not find it practical to provide their own M1 Abrams. The US tanks would first have to be transported across the Atlantic, maintenance is more complex, and they consume too much fuel. The tanks swallow the jet fuel kerosene. Unlike the Leopard and many of the Ukrainians' companions, they use diesel. The fact that German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius is again refusing to make a decision on German-made battle tanks for Ukraine embarrasses him and damages Germany's reputation. He's defense minister now. And that's completely unnecessary. After all, no Leopard would be finished before the end of the year. When Boris Pistorius took office as the new defense minister on Thursday, he exuded determination and drive. He completely destroyed the impression just one day later. Because although all Ukraine supporters put pressure on him, Pistorius again refused a clear decision to deliver German battle tanks. Yes, it seemed nothing short of ridiculous when Pistorius announced with a firm expression that he had now instead ordered a thorough audit of the inventory of Leopard systems. Because the federal government should have ordered this inventory by early summer at the latest, when the discussion about battle tanks for Kiev really began. Instead, Pistorius and his Chancellor Olaf Scholz made a fool of themselves, damaged Germany's reputation again, and torpedoed the cohesion with the Allies. Because countries like Poland, that have long been willing to deliver, will now deliver on their own after this farce. And they will simply ignore it if the federal government puts what we would say puts the crown on the Friday affront, and in all seriousness uses the right enshrined in the supply contracts to refuse a transfer of German weapons. The worst thing about it, however, is that Pistorius and the federal government are unnecessarily exposing themselves and our country. Germany could actually have assured the delivery with peace of mind. In the end, we would have had almost no Leos available anyway. The Bundeswehr can't do without any of their less than 200 active combat vehicles. The announcement by Rheinmetall, which is building the Leopard together with Krauss Maffei Wegmann or KMW, that it has more than 100 tanks ready is more of an illusion than an option. I talked about this on this channel before. Anyone who reads the reports from the industry carefully definitely knows. Above all, the people from Düsseldorf want to collect and refurbish combat vehicles from other operating countries such as Poland, Spain or Finland. Even if the tanks did come together, they would not be combat ready and would have to be overhauled first. This takes a while, and at the very least, 3 months. Only then will the 29 Leopard 2S be ready, which should go to Slovenia and the Czech Republic as part of the ring exchange as a replacement for the previous deliveries to the Ukraine. The conversion of the Leos offered by Finland, Poland and Spain should take a good 6 months, because a large part was stored for a long time. They are not suitable for war. That's what experts in the industry say. And even for the 22 vehicles stored at Rheinmetall themselves, the group calculates a setup time of just under a year. And last but not least, this is due to the fact that significantly more spare parts are needed for mass renovation than the industry has in stock. So the suppliers have to produce a lot first. But that is only possible with a clear mandate from the federal government or the EU, because it costs a lot. A renovation costs up to 4 million euros per vehicle. And all manufacturers have made it clear that they cannot finance this in advance. I mentioned that already last week. After the many delays or cancellations of promised orders, they first want to see money, either from Berlin or from Brussels. But there is an opportunity for Pistorius to mitigate the damage. He should first quickly complete the inventory. If he does this together with the industry, he could also improve the shattered relationship with the arms manufacturers. Then it is important to place the necessary orders for the conversion of the tanks quickly and unbureaucratically. And last but not least, for Pistorius it means planning ahead and implementing his maxim of being ahead of the curve, even if that has so far been against the customs of his house. Because the operation of the tanks in combat requires an even larger stock of spare parts than the conversion, and Germany could order them right now. So it remains just that we all hope that Minister Pistorius can listen as well as he says he can, and correctly interprets the signals after his messed up start in office, because we can't afford this to drag on for much longer. This is really ridiculous. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.